How's it going, everybody? This is Matt Higgins with the Nighttime Podcast, NYTE. Not your typical energy. It's a Monday, and I wanted to talk about something that happened this weekend. I went to visit some relatives, and I ended up getting into a heated argument with somebody. I'm not exactly proud of how it went down, but we're both very strong-willed and stubborn people. But while I was disappointed in how I let myself react to what this person was saying, it also disappoints me what this person was saying. Like, I thought better of them, and I still love them. I still look up to him, but his viewpoints just, they're not, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, or he's right or wrong, but there are certain lines in the sand you have to draw morally. And well, here, let me break it down. This is how it started. We were having a decent time, and then I wanted to broach the subject with him about the war going on over in Israel, between Israel and Hamas. Now, I have very strong opinions about the war. I think Israel's getting away with fucking genocide, murder. They are ethnically cleansing the Palestinians. There's no anybody who's capable of reasoning and critical thinking and logic, and has two eyes and are willing to use them, can see that's what's going on. They can call it whatever they want. They can call it self-defense, but you can't keep claiming self-defense when you've killed, I don't know, almost half the fucking population, and most of them being civilians. So, yeah, I know that's an exaggeration of the number, but they have killed what I would say is a fairly large number of civilians, innocents, women and children, lots of children, just wiping them off the map because, hey, what, 30,000 kids is worth 10 to 20 Hamas troops in their eyes? So fuck Israel. That's where I stand. But I tried to soften this discussion by first talking about a hypothetical situation here in the States. And here's how I set it up. Suppose some members of a gang decided to take over a school during a school day, full of kids. They control the exits. Nobody can get in or out. And, randomly, if certain demands aren't being met, a child might be sacrificed, killed, to try to get the point across by the gang members. If you could not figure out a way, either didn't have the manpower or didn't have the strategic capabilities to go in and surgically remove the bad guys without killing the hostages, would you go ahead and just give up and say, yeah, it's okay to just go ahead and blow up the school just so we could get rid of the bad guys, and then call all the kids that died collateral damage? Does that seem reasonable? And he said no. He said it reluctantly, but not as reluctantly as we got further into the discussion. Because then I said, "You're right. That's a very good point of view, that it would be unacceptable to go ahead and just blow up the school because you didn't want to put in the work and do whatever it took, or do whatever it took to save the kids. You don't just sacrifice all the kids just to get a few bad guys." So what happens next if this same gang had more members take over a couple more schools in the same area. So now let's say you've got 3 to 4 schools occupied by hostiles. All the entrances and exits are fortified. You can't get in or out easily. They're all full of children. And if for some reason you reach the decision you can't breach the gates, you can't get in the doors and surgically remove the bad guys easily, is it okay to just blow up the neighborhood? Is it okay to just blow up the entire area where all the schools are that are being taken over by gang members? Is it okay to sacrifice all of those kids and all of those people that live in the neighborhood just to get the bad guys? Is that acceptable? Now, at this point, my relative knew where this was going, and he more reluctantly so than before, said, "No, I don't agree with that either." But you could sense there was a but coming. And then my daughter said, "What are you guys talking about?" And then the person I was engaged in a discussion with goes, I know where he's taking this, and he was already upset about it. And I said, so I figured I'd go in for the kill. I said, so what's the difference? Why is it acceptable what Israel is doing to the Palestinians? Israel was attacked on the 7th of October. Nobody denies that. It was a horrible attack. There were people murdered, and there were people taken hostage. Now, that number was under 3,000. I don't know the exact number. It doesn't matter, because the amount of people that were affected in that attack pales in comparison to what Israel is doing to the opposite side. Israel is bombing hospitals, schools, neighborhoods, entire fucking cities, just to get a few bad guys, and they don't care who dies as part of the collateral damage. So when under 3,000 people, under 3,000 Israelis are affected by the first attack, and now all of a sudden you've got, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people getting killed? At what point does it stop being self-defense and start becoming ethnic genocide? A Holocaust, a murder on such a massive scale that's incomprehensible. To which my relative then replied, well, it's war. And I said, whoa. We can't be a hypocrite here. At what point, as the United States, do we have a moral obligation to stand up and call out bullshit when we see it? And then he managed to morph it into, well, first of all, it's war and people do what they feel they need to do. And secondly, we should be worried about our own country and fixing our own problems first. So he quickly went from, if that was happening here, it would be unacceptable. But because it's happening somewhere else, fuck them. Who cares? Because our problem is we've got too many non-white people coming into the country and burdening our system, our welfare system. There's too many non-whites in this country. And he was willing to lump the Mexicans, the browns with the blacks. There's too many people that don't belong here. And that's how he phrased it. And that's exactly where I started to lose my temper. Like, I became completely flushed. And I was like, in my head, I was going, Jesus fucking Christ, I've known this guy my entire life. And some of the things that he says and thinks, it's like I held him up to this pedestal, on this pedestal, and and he just morally he's not where I thought he would be or where I hoped he would be. And his excuse was, well, you can't believe the news and the numbers coming from different parts of the world, so we don't really know what's going on in Israel. Yes, we do. And the reason we do is because so many journalists have also been murdered trying to get the truth out by Israel. Murdered by Israel on purpose. It's not accidental. And Israel's not even denying how many people are dying and how many innocents are dying. They just don't give a fuck because they know, for whatever reason, everybody will bend over and lick their ass no matter what they do, because we're somehow morally obligated to support Israel no matter what. And that's bullshit. You got to call out wrong when wrong happens. That's just the way it is. If you're a true friend won't lie to you. A true friend will tell you, hey, you fucked up, you're fucking up, or you're gonna fuck up. You're wrong. And it's okay to say that to a friend. And if they're an ally is a friend, and we should be able, as the United States, to tell Israel, hey, stop fucking murdering people. Figure out a better way. Or we're going to stop sending you money. We're going to stop sending you money. We're going to stop sending you fucking weapons. We're going to stop sending you aid in humanitarian aid. None of that shit's coming until you stop murdering people and figure out how to fix it. Now, this conversation went off the rails with this relative. I'm just going to say my father. It was my father. He and I butt heads on a lot of things. I still love him to death. I still love him no matter what. But fuck, man. I can't get my head wrapped around how he gets there. And I don't know if he was like that his entire life, or if he, as he got older, I don't know if as you get older, you just become more cynical and conservative. I'm not there. I totally am not conservative when it comes to certain things. I'm not a racist. I'm not a xenophobe. I'm not a misogynist, although I will make jokes about all these things because humor is what helps fix the world. And we have to be able to joke with ourselves. Now, when he decided to take it to this country's problems, yeah, this country has problems. Yes, the border needs to get fixed. Yes, we can't sustain this many people coming over the border all at once into our society. But there's ways to fix that properly without, fuck all the poor and the non-whites. They don't belong here. That's not an attitude that I accept. There were a lot of foreigners that worked under me and with me, and they worked a hell of a lot harder than some of the white people I worked with. So you can't tell me they're all lazy. They're all a burden on society, because they're not. There's a lot of white people on welfare. A lot of white people. And I told him that. And he said, well, that's because there's more of us. Yes, right. There's more of us, so there's more white people on it. That doesn't mean that we exclusively get to have it just because there's more of us, and that's an excuse to make it okay, because it doesn't. Now, at this point, I couldn't articulate very well the point I was trying to get across because he was so fucking infuriating. He just thinks that, well, it's been long enough. Black people shouldn't still be looked at as the lower class, and that they should just get over it. They've had plenty of time to get over it. That's his viewpoint. And I'm like, you can't. And the last, I got up and into his face, and I was leaving the room, and I was like, you can't stab somebody with a 12-inch knife, bury it to the hilt, and then pull it out 6 inches and say, there, I helped you. What more do you want? Figure it the fuck out. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. There's still 6 inches of that dagger in there, not to mention the damage the 12 inches did. I said, you could just be, you couldn't, after the war, Black people were stuck in these neighborhoods while white people were able to get loans to get better houses in better neighborhoods away from where all these ghettos were going to be born, and black people were stuck there because they couldn't get loans because they were black. We could use them during the war effort, but as soon as the country wasn't at war, yeah, we don't fucking need you black people anymore. So fuck them. And I expressed that. I said that kind of fucking damage societally does not just go away. And then I had to leave the room because I was so fucking enervated. And I would never swing at my dad unless it came down to something he was saying about my daughter. He could say whatever he wants about me, about my mom. She'll take care of herself if she needs to, or if he fucking, if he were to run his mouth about my girlfriend. So, but other than that, I can't take a swing at him, and that's why I walked away. And that was the end of that conversation. I was like, okay, we're done. I went to the bathroom, splashed water in my face, came out. I said, we're done talking about it. We'll stay friends. But the sheer disappointment that I have in his viewpoints, and like I said, I can't say for certain who's right and who's wrong, but I do definitely feel a moral obligation to stand up for people that can't stand up for themselves or are having trouble standing up for themselves. And I can't abide misogyny, xenophobism, if that's a word. I can't stand misogynists, xenophobes, racists, bigots. It's just we should be so far advanced as a society, and I don't think we're going to ever really get there until these. And I don't wish my parents dead. I hope they live another 20 to 30 years, but those kind of viewpoints aren't going to go away. You can't teach somebody like that. They're too set in their ways. So we have to wait for these generations to expire. And that's such a fucking horrible feeling to know that we can't further ourselves and become better without getting rid of these caveman fucking viewpoints. And the system, our government, our society, our country is not being destroyed by immigrants or by illegal aliens. They're just not. They're working, they're paying taxes, and they can't vote. But my parents have begun listening to Fox News, and suddenly, every problem in the country is white people trying to defend non-whites and non-whites. Non-whites are the problem, and white people defending non-whites. If we could just get rid of those people, then the straight white heterosexual cisgendered males and females, we would be an awesome country, and everything would just take care of itself. Well, it doesn't work that way, because those people do exist. Non-whites do exist. People that care about non-whites do exist. And to be totally honest about the Israel thing, hey, I don't give a fuck about the Israelis. I don't care about Jews. I don't care about Jews in the same way I don't care about Catholics, the way I don't care about Christians. They all believe their own horse shit. They all live the way they want to live. I'm tired of the United States bending over backwards for Israel when they don't do shit for us, except give us a little intelligence now and again about what's going on over there. And quite frankly, I don't give a fuck what's going on over there anyways. Let them blow each other up. Let them fucking duke it out. And then whoever's left, we go in there and we put our fucking foot down and say, hey, you guys won. You guys get to negotiate with us. But I'm telling you right now, it's going to be our way, or we'll come in and finish the job. You're going to work with us, or you're going to work for us. And I'm not worried about nuclear capabilities over there. None of them are crazy enough to launch a weapon at us, because they know the first weapon they launch at us, we will wipe them off the fucking map. That's the same reason Putin doesn't attack us, because he knows better. There's no winning a nuclear war, and everybody knows that. These desert countries just want the ability to stand up on the world stage and say, hey, you can't bully us around because we also have a nuclear weapon. And quite frankly, I say they should have one. Everybody should have one, at the very least. That way everybody can feel part of the same group, and that way everybody has the same responsibility to protect the world and not use those fucking weapons. Maybe they would feel differently and act differently and think differently if they had that kind of destruction at their disposal. And if you're worried that they might use it on religious grounds, well, welcome to the fucking club, because I worry about this country and the fucking tank job we're going through because of religion. Religion's destroying our country too. So life's a bitch. Deal with it. Let Kim Jong-un have his fucking nuclear weapons. He's not going to launch them. His country is like this big on a map, on an island this big on a map. He'd get wiped out too. It'd take 10 fucking minutes to end that war with him. Let them rattle their sabers. So, yeah, that's kind of, so that, and I started that argument. I went there. I knew how bad it was going to go. I didn't think he was going to become an Israeli apologist and turn it into and then turn it into a racist segue. But so that kind of surprised me, which also made me more mad because I didn't see it coming. Yeah, I'm so disappointed, and I love him. He was an awesome dad. I don't know. It upsets me because I'm disappointed. That's all, I guess. I feel like we are so much more capable of living up to the ideals that we all have for ourselves, but we just, on a consistent basis, we fail to do so. So that's how my weekend went. And so I was over there because we were celebrating my mom's birthday, and I also feel shitty about that because I let it deteriorate into a screaming match between me and my father when it should have been just an amiable, happy couple of hours. And now Mother's Day is coming up, and now I got to decide if I want to go over there again and try and bite my tongue. I mean, we've had plenty of visits where I don't have to talk about politics or religion, and we get along fine. But politics and religion play such a huge part in what's going on in the world. I sometimes find it hard to not be able to talk about things like that. So, and here's another thing. This episode of this podcast is going to be kind of a bit of therapy for me. I want to talk about a few times where my father kind of overreacted to situations, and I'll let you know, just to get it off my chest, because I don't want to talk to him about it, because he won't take it well. And I figure if I just talk about it on here, get it out in the open, get it off my chest, then maybe I'll stop thinking about it. So, having said that, I'm going to go through a few scenarios that I went through growing up with my father, and you can decide whether or not, my feelings of disappointment and anger and betrayal are warranted or not. So, one of the earliest memories I have as a child, it was before I was in school. My sister's 2 years younger than me, so she was a baby. She was just We were living in an apartment in downtown Des Moines. I was young. She had to be maybe 2 or 3, and I was probably 4 or 5. And we were sitting in the living room with my parents, and my sister grabbed something. I don't know if she grabbed a fork or something metal, and she was crawling over to an outlet, and she was getting ready to stick whatever the metal thing was into the outlet. And I'm at my age, I'm a little tiny kid. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what happens, what bad thing is about to happen. So I'm watching, and then my dad is sitting on the floor with us, and he happens to turn and see her reaching it to the outlet, and he fucking leaps over and grabs her and stops her from doing it. And in his anxiety and surprise, he turned and looked at me and said, "You were going to let her fucking do it, weren't you?" Now, keep in mind, I'm either 3 or 4 years old, and all of a sudden, I'm totally responsible for the actions of my 2 years younger sister. Like, I still remember that. That is one of the first memories I have as a child, is him yelling at me for something I was going to have no control over because I didn't understand the situation. You were going to let her fucking do it, weren't you? How can you say that to a little kid? So that's my earliest memory of my dad. I remember we were in a house in Mason City, Iowa. We lived in a nice house. I'm sure we were renting it. And it was still before school, before I was in school. And we had these nice wooden stairs that were like 2 and 3 levels. So you would go up a level, turn, go up a level. And my sister and I were playing on them one day, and we were laying on our backs, and we would slowly slide down the stairs on our backs, so we get that bumping sensation. And we were doing that, and nothing was going wrong. And then something happened, and my sister hit her head, or she slid too fast. My parents didn't see what happened. They were in another room doing whatever they were doing. But my sister started crying. She wasn't hurt, she wasn't injured. She might have hurt herself, but there was nothing wrong with her other than she got scared and she bumped her head. And then my parents came in, and obviously my parents overreacted to any kind of pain or screaming or crying. Like, they just went into full fucking demon mode and would just yell and just start throwing blame around. And so what did they say to me? They said, "I hope you're satisfied. If she dies, it's going to be your fault. If she dies, it'll be your fault." You're telling that again to a toddler. What the fuck am I supposed to do with that? I knew she didn't get hurt. I knew she just bumped her head. I knew it wasn't anything major. I was there. But somehow it was my fault, and they overreacted, and they threw that kind of shit onto me. So another one of my earliest memories, and my mom had said that one to me. She was the one that said, I hope you're satisfied. If she dies, it'll be your fault. Like, fuck me, man. Having to live with that kind of stuff. I remember another time we were living at my grandfather's house because my father was having trouble making ends meet, and my mom fucking hated it there. I'm sure my dad did too, just because we were having to live with my grandfather. Nobody ever wants to do that. Nobody likes to be in in financial straits. But we were standing in the hallway. My grandfather was in the living room, and mom was arguing with dad about something, and I asked a question about, well, what's wrong? Why is this, I don't even remember what it was about. I just know that I was asking questions because I didn't understand. She kept saying, keep your voice down, shut up. And I, I guess I didn't respond fast, or I didn't quiet up fast enough because I said one more thing and my mom knocked me on my ass. Like, knocked me on my ass. I've seen my mom punch out a windshield. I've seen my dad fucking lose his shit arguing with my grandfather because when I was eating, I couldn't eat vegetables. Peas, carrots, green beans, they made me throw up if just smelling them. And I remember one day, the only way I could get my vegetables down was if I took small bites of them and then just swallowed them whole with whatever we were drinking, milk or tea or whatever. And one day I just couldn't handle it, and I ended up gagging and throwing up a little bit onto my plate. And I remember my mom saying, "Fine, here, you want something to fucking wash it down?" And she took my glass of tea and threw it on my plate. And then my grandfather got mad, saying, "Why can't you just let him eat corn? At least he can eat that." And then he got into an argument with my dad because that's what makes him fat. And he grabbed my stomach and said, "This is what corn does." So there was never any never any shortage of my parents making me feel good about myself. One day when I was a teenager, we were in the house that I ended up finally settling down in on the south side of Des Moines, and from 5th grade through graduation, we were able to stay there. I remember one day my dad he was sitting in the living room at the far end. I was walking towards the door. My dad said, "Hey, go out in the yard and pick up all the sticks." And I remember I said, "Do I have to right now?" Like, I wasn't being a dick about it that I remember. But when I said that, I said, "Do I have to do it right now?" He flew out of his chair across the room. Like, I didn't have time to interpret what was happening. He flew across that fucking room. He grabbed me by my hair, opened the front door, and threw me off the fucking porch into the yard. Grabbed me by my hair, and I had long hair at that time. Grabbed me by my hair, opened the fucking front door, and threw me off the front porch into the yard. He didn't even say anything. He just did it. What do I do with that? That's what I was dealing with. He punched holes in walls. He kicked holes in walls. My sister accidentally hit me with a golf club one day. Hit me right here in the left cheek. Put a gash in it. Took 4 stitches. And she knocked me on my ass. It was an accident. We were hitting rocks in the yard with the golf club. I stood beside her, but I wasn't far enough back from her, so she took a swing and she swung it around like a baseball bat, and full strength smacked me right in my cheek. Bam. Big old divot. Chunk taken out of my cheek. I remember going inside. And I don't remember if I was crying or not. I was probably crying because I was still young. Before junior high. And he lost his shit. He just snapped. He started fucking yelling and screaming, grabbed the golf club, the other golf club that we had, grabbed them both, snapped them across his knees, threw him down into the basement, just fucking losing his shit. Like, can you calm down? I got hit. I got hurt. Get me to the hospital. You don't need to fucking browbeat me and make me feel like shit about it. You don't need to yell and scream at me. Can we just go to the hospital? But they weren't wired that way. Like, I don't know. Some of the things that happen. I remember we were driving, my mom was driving, we were going to pick up my dad from work, I believe. My mom was driving an orange pickup that belonged to my grandfather. We were borrowing it. My sister was in the middle, and I was on the passenger side. It was a bench seat, didn't have back seats back then. We're talking mid-'80s. And the passenger door didn't always shut properly. It had been damaged somehow, so you had to really slam the fuck out of it. Well, my mom got in her side. My sister got in on my side. I got in on my side. I slammed the door as hard as I could, being a toddler. Not a toddler, but I was in fifth grade. I was in fifth grade at the time. So I slammed the door. We think everything's good. We still don't wear seat belts. My mom's driving along. She takes a left-hand turn. We swing a little bit in the bench seat. I lean against the door, and the door flies open, and I fly out the car as she's turning left. And I remember smacking my face, bouncing off my back and my head, broke my front tooth. And I remember my mom coming over to me. Luckily, by the grace of the gods, I wasn't run over. I remember her slamming on the brakes. She came over to me. Another guy came over to me and was trying to say something and ask if I was okay or if I could do this or that or whatever. And she's like, all I care about is if he's still alive. I just want to make sure he's still alive. That's what she said. I just want to make sure he's still alive. And then she puts me back in the vehicle, and then we go home. We don't even go to the fucking doctor. We just go home. And I'm laying in bed, and I'm fucking just pain all over. My back's killing me. My tooth is broken. The fresh break, that hurts like a son of a bitch. And I'm so stiff, and I'm scared. I'm scared. Wit's end scared because I almost just died. And I at the time I didn't process what had happened other than I had hit the pavement. And later, I realized, well, it was because the door didn't get shut all the way. And I'm assuming my mom blamed me for that because I didn't get any sympathy out of her. My dad came home and gave me the, well, are you okay? I'm glad you're okay. I love you. Never got an I love you unless I was in pain or he was apologizing for some shitty thing he did. And I never remember my mom saying I love you. I don't think she ever said I love you until, I don't know, maybe 7-8 years ago. I finally heard her say it. Hey, and don't get me wrong, everybody's childhood had some fucked up stuff in it. I'm not saying I'm special or different, but but it's the kind of thing that kind of fucks with your head, and therapy's not such a bad thing, getting that stuff off your chest and talking about it. And I remember after that accident, my mom wouldn't even call the school the next day and call me in sick and explain what happened. She made me, a fifth grader, call in after the accident, the day after, and I'm fucking stiff as a board because everything fucking hurts. She made me call in and say I had an accident, a car accident, and I wasn't going to be able to make it in. And the school administrator on the other end was like, why are you calling? And I was like, I don't know. And she said, well, you really need to have one of your parents call the next time. I'm like, okay. I don't know. My mom wouldn't call. She was embarrassed, or she didn't want the school to think she was a bad parent, or that I was in danger. I don't know. But making me call in, that was a little fucked up. So that's so my father wasn't perfect, I guess, was the point of that. And I'd already had some. I used to be afraid of him. I'm not afraid of him anymore. Even if we were to get physical, I have no level of concern that I won't be able to hold my own. But that's, even through all of that, I still looked up to him. He's my father. He did the best he could with what he had. He had a lot of cards dealt against him, and he fucking worked through it. We were on welfare for a while he was trying to get his feet under him, and he never quit trying. But we were also on welfare for a time. And I had asked my dad this weekend. I said, how long do you think most people are on welfare? I said that. How long do you think most people are on welfare? And he said, forever. He's been lied to by these stupid fucking Republicans and Fox News that whoever's on welfare is just on there for life. It's not most people. Most people who are on welfare get on it, use it for as long as they need it, and then they get off of it, like 2, 3, 4 years. That's it. There's a small percentage that take advantage of the system. And I don't give a fuck whose system you use, who creates it, and who implements it. There's always going to be somebody who takes advantage of it. It's just because that's the way it is. The system's designed by humans. It's inherently flawed. It will have loopholes. The fucking rich use tax loopholes all the time. That's how they don't pay taxes, because that system was created by humans. Rich people are on welfare their entire lives. Poor people are not. Most poor people are not. And that was the other thing that fucking blew the back of my head out when I was having that argument with him. It's like, how can you fucking think that my father, for having been poor for many, many years of his life while we were growing up, he sure fucking hates poor people. Like, I don't know how you get to that point. And I don't mean to keep shitting on him, because he really is a good man. And he would do anything for us. And he has done everything, for us that he can when we've needed it. But he's not perfect. And people need to understand that you have to own up to your flaws. And some of the things we do with our children kind of fucks them up in the head. And you need to take responsibility for that. Did they do it on purpose? No, I don't think my parents did the things they did on purpose. I think they just weren't necessarily born to be great parents. They didn't have the what do you call it? I'm drawing a blank. They didn't really have the aptitude for it, so to speak. I don't think they were ready. My parents had me when they were 18. Or my father was 18 when I was born. My mom, I think, was 20. She's a couple years older than my dad. So they weren't ready. And then I'm pretty sure they weren't definitely ready when they had my sister 2 years later. But, it is what it is. They weren't emotionally wired to have kids. How's that? Now, I made a promise to myself that I would not turn into my dad when it came to certain things. And one of those was corporal punishment. My dad didn't beat me. He didn't beat us. We got off lucky on that case. But there were times where he would snap and overreact, and things would get physical. It just happens. And I would argue that sometimes emotional abuse is just as bad as physical abuse. Bruises heal, but the emotional scarring fucking lives on and fucking on. Why is that stuff still fresh in my memory? Why do I still think about it? I don't actively search it out. It's like an intrusive thought. It just fucking pops in there. And I just, could they have done better? Yeah. I've been a fuck up as a parent too. But the one thing I didn't do was ever raise a hand to my kid. And I never screamed him down like my father would do me. I tried to stay as emotionally stable as I possibly could. Now, when it came to my wife, I could not control my shit because she was a manipulative, leeching, life-sucking fucking cunt. And still is. Which is why we are now separated, and we have been for the last 5-6 years. And that's why I've moved on with my life. But I did not beat my child. I did not scream at my child. And I think that's where I did better than my parents did for me. And I'm sure that my daughter, if she went and if she decides to have a child, she'll be even better than I was. And then that's the goal. You always want to be better than your parents. My parents were better than their parents, I'm sure. I was better than my parents, and my daughter will be better than me. And that's all I can hope for. Anyway, I appreciate you listening to all that bullshit. I feel like now that I've said that to somebody else, I kind of feel a little better about it. And like I said, I love my parents, I love my dad, I love my mom. I just, sometimes their viewpoints, I just can't fucking, I just feel like, fuck, how can we be related? You know? How am I so much more socially advanced and empathetic than they are? And I just hope I don't turn into, I hope I don't turn into them when I get to be their age. That's mainly the thrust of what I'm trying to say. And I love my parents. Like I said, I love my parents to death. They've done everything they possibly could for me. And I'm nothing but grateful for that. Just because I'm angry with certain things that happened in my childhood does not mean that negates all the good things that happened. But people need to understand that the bad things happened too. Just because good things happened as well does not negate the bad. It all works together. It all works together. And sometimes the bad memories outweigh the good at certain times in your life. That's pretty much it. I think I've bored you guys enough. Until next time, my name is Matt Higgins. This has been the Nighttime Podcast, NYTE. Peace, love, and gossip, everybody. Have a good week, and I will talk to you next Monday.